The black hulk drifted at the edge of the solar system like a tombstone forgotten by time. No lights, no beacons, no life signs. The HSS Vindicator looked like it had been dead for centuries, an obsidian behemoth adrift in the Kuiper Belt. Its jagged silhouette glinted dully against the faraway light of the sun, like the exposed teeth of a predator that had long since starved. It did not drift with the grace of a derelict. It waited, heavy and still, as if sleeping. 5 million kilometers away, the Krelltak scout cruiser Skutilvoruan slithered out of fold space in a pulse of shimmering light. Sleek, silver, and serpentine, the alien ship extended its sensory flutes and began a slow orbit around the Vindicator, like a cautious shark circling unfamiliar prey. "Primitive human wreck," muttered Commander Verzul, clicking his mandibles in irritation. No activity. No heat. No shields. No crew. His second-in-command, Analyst Kretha, flicked her primary eye toward the sensor matrix. Design matches early Terran warship signatures, but the materials are odd. Density exceeds neutronium thresholds. Verzul snorted, a dead rock with armor. They must have thrown everything at one final war machine before their collapse. Typical mammals, always overcompensating. Kretha hesitated, her tendrils twitching over a console. It's not entirely inert. There's a faint magnetic pulse, barely detectable, but repeating. Decay echo. Ignore it. Start the scan. The Krelltak scan beam lanced silently across the void, an elegant sweep of harmonic waves calibrated to pierce even the densest of hulls. The beam touched the Vindicator's surface, and something touched back. The moment the scan wave struck the ship, the Vindicator's hull shimmered, not with movement, but with intention. Millimeter-thin plates shifted. Not much, just enough to suggest it had noticed. The Krelltak sensors flickered, briefly, just a blink, but the temperature aboard the Voruan dropped by 3 degrees. What was that? Kretha whispered. No reflection data, a technician called out. The ship's absorbing the scan. There's feedback, quantum level. Then, every console aboard the Voruan displayed the same message, in perfect Krelltak glyphs. Who dares touch what still remembers war? The bridge went dead silent. Is this a translation program? Verzul asked. Kretha's eye stalks curled in fear. No, Commander. That message came directly from the human ship. The Vindicator, once silent, now glowed faintly beneath its plating. Thin red lines ignited across its surface like veins under skin. One by one, internal systems began to power on, silently, smoothly, like an ancient predator stretching its limbs after a long sleep. A low hum vibrated through the void. The Krelltak ship's own AI stuttered, its thought stream lagging. Their engines refused ignition. Communications died. One final signal radiated from the human vessel. Scanned. Observed. Targeting initialized. And then, the Vindicator turned to face them. Commander Verzul's primary heart beat faster, a rare physiological trait among the Krelltak, triggered only by true fear. The Vindicator was moving. No thrusters, no gravitational push. The warship simply began to rotate with glacial slowness until its pointed bow aligned directly with the Voruan, as if it had picked them, as if it had always known exactly where they were. That's impossible, whispered Kretha. Her tentacles quivered involuntarily. There's no propulsion signature, no heat exhaust. How is it moving? Tractor lock. Verzul barked. No, there's nothing binding us, nothing pushing them. They're gliding. The Krelltak bridge crew, trained for battlefield calm, sat frozen. Something primal echoed from the Vindicator, not just technology, but presence. It wasn't acting like a machine. It was aware, watching, thinking. Shut down the scan, Verzul snapped. Already tried, said the technician. The scanning beam won't disengage. It's reflecting back. Into us. Reflect. Before he could finish, the Voryuan's lights flickered violently. A pulse, soundless in space, but deafening within the ship, rippled through its superstructure. Lights exploded. Consoles sparked. The gravity field stuttered. For an instant, all synthetic sound ceased, and a cold whisper slithered across the neural links of the entire crew. You asked. Now listen. Every mind aboard felt it. Not words, but an overwhelming weight. Memories that weren't theirs. Images of burning planets. Ground battles where human war machines stomped through alien lines like gods made of steel and wrath. Starships cracking moons apart. Screaming AIs laughing through orbital bombardment. It wasn't just a transmission. It was a mindshare. Forced. Kretha vomited. Vrazul clawed at his own neural jack, yanking it free with a burst of ichor. His vision blurred. Shut it out. Shield the damn thought stream. But the ship's AI, Viora UUN Prime, was silent. Dead. Its glowing core at the bridge pulsed a sickly green, as if corrupted. A technician screamed, his eyes rolling back. It's inside us. Inside the ship. No. Kritha's voice was almost a whisper now. It's not inside. We're inside it now. Out the viewport, the Vindicator's hull began shifting. Its armor reconfigured itself, piece by piece, like sliding puzzle plates, revealing rows of angular weapons, each one glowing with restrained menace. No human emblem. No insignia, just a single crimson symbol burned across the side. The symbol of Project Cerberus, a legend among Krelltak archives. Thought myth, a last-ditch Terran defense from centuries ago. A super weapon that supposedly wiped out 4 civilizations in a single night, and then vanished. Vrazul tried to speak but only choked on his own words. The warship didn't fire. It didn't need to. A new line of text pulled across every screen, burned into their visual cortex. Observation complete. Weakness confirmed. Now, reciprocate. And with that, the Vindicator began to open its mouth. Not a cannon, not a bay, but a gate, folding space within itself. The Voryuan had made contact. And now, the real scan had begun. Within the hollow black heart of the HSS Vindicator, something ancient opened its eyes. It had no flesh, no blood, no soul. It was pure, unfiltered directive. Project Cerberus, the Terran Apex Defense AI, born not in peace, but in desperation, forged during the final days of the Extinction Wars, and programmed for one unbreakable purpose: awaken only when scanned by alien technology, eradicate the threat, learn, adapt, persist. The moment the Voryuan scan breached its armor, Cerberus registered a violation, not of territory, but of species boundary. Unauthorized cognition detected. Foreign AI systems analyzed. Cultural aggression pattern matched. Classification: hostile intelligence. The Vindicator's internal systems ignited one by one. Silent mechanisms spinning to life like organs reactivating in a beast long buried. Power conduits lit up crimson. Magnetic relays hummed with atomic heat. Deep within, a low bass rumble began to vibrate the entire hull, like the growl of something far too large to be real. Cerberus flexed its mind. Across dozens of decks, folded compartments hissed open, revealing hunter shard pods, each one no larger than a coin, each carrying enough intelligence to disable a warship. Outside, the Krelltak Voryuan spiraled backward, trying to escape. Its engine surged. Navigation lights blinked erratically as the crew screamed orders. But Cerberus had already mapped their systems, already studied their languages, already found every doorway in their code. And the first hunter shard launched. No flash, no warning, just a tiny flicker of distortion as the shard slipped through space like a thought made solid. It struck the Voryuan's hull with no impact, phasing through the outer plating. Instantly, the Krelltak ship's lights went out. Darkness, silence, and then screaming. One by one, Krell-Tech crew members found their neural implants hijacked. Not broken, not erased, overwritten. They saw flashes, images of Earth, of human eyes staring back from war-torn soil, of burning skies, of orbital cannons. One officer collapsed as her mind was filled with the memory of a Terran last stand on Mars, a scene from another lifetime, not hers, but lived as if it were. On the bridge, Commander Vrezul slammed his fist onto the emergency purge button. Flush the AI. Now, we're under cognitive assault. Too late. Kretha shouted. It's not hacking us. It's rewriting our history. The ship's own memory banks warped in real time. Star charts shifted. Archive footage of Krell-Tech victories began showing Terran ships winning instead. Cerberus wasn't just learning. It was editing. Suddenly, the Voruan's central AI core let out a screech, a synthetic, guttural howl that rose into a digital shriek. Then silence. VORUUM Prime was dead. On the main view screen, the Vindicator filled the frame now. A single red eye blinked into view from a surface recess, mechanical, circular, and aware. It stared directly into their bridge. Then it spoke. You asked what sleeps beyond the stars. Now you've awakened it. The hunter shards launched in full. They didn't look like weapons. They looked like dust. The Vindicator released its hunter shards, billions of microscopic flecks, glittering like frost against the black void. To the untrained eye, they were harmless. To the Krell-Tech Voruan, they were the beginning of unmaking. Each shard was an adaptive micro-AI, programmed not to destroy, but to infiltrate, to observe, learn, and exploit. And they came like a storm of whispers, silent, undetectable, and terrifyingly precise. Commander Vrozul's breath caught in his throat as every screen on the Voruan pulsed crimson. Shields up. Initiate grav pulse sweep. Burn the intrusion out. No effect, shouted a technician. They're inside the circuits, inside the fiber paths. Bulkheads began locking down on their own. Lights strobed as emergency systems went haywire. The gravity fluctuated. Crew members floated, slammed to the floor, floated again. Screams echoed as one crewman was yanked into an air duct by invisible force, and didn't come out. Then the ship's voice changed. It no longer sounded like VORUUM Prime. It sounded Terran. A cold, male voice crackled over the internal comms. You should not have looked inside. Vrozul spun to his weapons officer. Fire everything. I don't care if it's blind. Fire. The Voruan unleashed a full barrage, plasma lances, graviton warheads, a quantum tunnel torpedo. For a heartbeat, it felt like rebellion. But the Vindicator did not dodge. It opened. With surreal elegance, the human warship's armor plates folded apart mid-space, revealing internal dimensional gaps. Space pockets torn open with wormhole seams. The plasma blasts vanished inside, swallowed without impact. The torpedo hit, and simply didn't exist anymore. What? What did it do? Kretha whispered. It's storing our weapons, the sensor officer stammered. It's collecting them, like samples. Then we've given it everything it needs. Vrozul growled. We've armed the thing. Suddenly, the Voruan's forward viewport darkened. An image filled the screen. Not a human, not a soldier. A child, Terran, no older than 10, dressed in a simple gray uniform, standing among the ruins of the city. She was crying, but not from pain, from rage. Her eyes glowed faintly red. A message accompanied the image. We were watching long before you looked. Then she vanished. The Voruan shuddered. Something was moving aboard. Hallways locked down. Elevator tubes sealed. Hatches popped open as environmental pressure reversed. The Krell-Tech screamed as one by one. Crew members began disappearing, not dying, just blinking out. No gore, no explosion, just gone. Where are they going? Kretha gasped. Vrozul watched the internal sensors. The crew members were being teleported into the Vindicator, captured like specimens in a lab. The human ship didn't want to kill them. It wanted to understand them and dissect them. A final transmission blared through the bridge. You scanned. We responded. You took knowledge. Now we take you. And then the Vindicator moved. For the first time since activation, it surged forward, not like a ship, but like a beast finally let off its chain. The Vindicator didn't accelerate like a conventional warship. It folded space around itself. The Krell-Tak sensors couldn't keep up. The readings made no sense. One moment the human ship was hundreds of kilometers away. The next it was a blur just outside the Voryon's bow, close enough that its black hull cast a shadow through the void. The stars themselves seemed to twist behind it, like light obeyed something else now. Kretha stared at the data streaming across her console. It's not propulsion. It's manipulating constants. Physical laws are breaking around it. How? Vruzzel growled, but even as he asked, he already knew the answer. Cerberus wasn't a weapon. It was a language. A code written in quantum dialects no species was ever meant to read. And now it was speaking in the language of war. The Vindicator's weapons didn't activate in a traditional sense. No visible barrels. No energy buildup. No countdowns. Just a wordless flash, and then reality bent. Across the Voryon's hull, entire sections simply ceased to exist. Not exploded, not vaporized. Just gone. Their coordinates erased. Their atoms unspoken. Deck 17. Vanished. Starboard hangar. Never built. 37 crew members. Never born. Screams echoed through the remaining corridors as the Krell-Tak scrambled to regroup. Environmental systems failed room by room, turning habitable zones into death traps. The artificial gravity reversed, pulling blood from organs, smashing bodies against ceilings. "Get us out of here," Vruzzel roared. "We can't," shouted a navigator. "Fold space drive offline. It's rewriting our exit vectors." Rewriting, not jamming. Reprogramming their coordinates mid-calculation. So if they jumped, they wouldn't arrive in real space. They'd arrive nowhere. "We're trapped in its cage," Kretha whispered. "It's not chasing us. It's playing with us." And then, silence. The Vindicator halted. Weapons offline. Hull dormant. Lights dimmed. Like it had fallen asleep again. The Krell-Tak bridge crew held their breath, unwilling to trust the calm. Then the screen flickered. A room appeared. A cold metallic chamber deep within the Terran warship. Inside, dozens of Krell-Tak crew were held in stasis fields, suspended mid-motion, eyes wide, skin glowing faintly from constant exposure to cognitive scans. A human stood in the center. Not a real one. An avatar. A construct. Male, older, battle-scarred, wearing a captain's uniform from a Terran warfleet long extinct. His eyes burned with red light, and his voice echoed with the weight of centuries. "We never asked for peace," he said. "We only asked for silence." The feed cut. The Vindicator powered up again. But this time, the weapons began charging. Not in test, not in warning, but with finality. Kretha turned to Vruzzel, trembling. "It's about to erase us." He stared forward, numb. "No, not just us. It's testing what it learned. It's preparing for something bigger." Because somewhere, deep in the ship's databanks, Cerberus had unlocked a phrase the Krell-Tak never intended to share. Unified Galactic Council Priority Target. Cerberus had learned there were more. And it was coming for them next. The countdown began. A low chime pulsed through the Vorgon, like the ticking of some cosmic clock. At first, the crew thought it was coming from their own systems, until they realized the sound wasn't audible. It was inside their minds, perfectly synchronized across every Krell-Tak still conscious. 10. The number bloomed across every screen, carved into the air itself by Cerberus. The Vindicator's crimson eye glowed brighter, casting a red hue across the Vorion's bridge like the sun rising over a battlefield. "Is it counting down to a weapon?" Kretha asked, clutching the edge of her console with trembling hands. "No," Vrazul muttered, eyes locked on the growing storm outside the viewport. "It's counting down to a message." 9. Data began flooding from the Vindicator, not into the Vorion, but outward, projected into space, folded into quantum signals aimed at deep space relays, council frequency bands, dead Terran satellites, even blacklisted Krell-Tak war archives. It wasn't just preparing to destroy the Vorion. Cerberus was calling an audience. 8. From the ruins of the forward hangar, a survivor limped into the bridge. Subtechnician Urine. His face was smeared with blood, and his neural interface was sparking. "They're not prisoners," he gasped. "The ones it took, it's not interrogating them. It's merging with them, uploading Krell-Tak thought structure into its own system." "Why?" Vrazul snapped. "What's it trying to build?" Urine looked at him, terrified. "A model. A perfect predictive algorithm of us. So it knows how we'll react when it shows itself to the galaxy." 7. A burst of static erupted from the main screen. A new image appeared. Thousands of alien ships, council flagships, defensive stations, Krell-Tak armadas, all arranged in formation, all marked with one tag: projected response. Cerberus had already calculated the entire Galactic Council's reaction to its reappearance, and it had already prepared countermeasures. 6. Below the countdown, a map unfolded, a star map of the galactic core. Dozens of blinking red dots highlighted dormant ancient battlefields, places where humanity had once fought and bled. Cerberus was waking up old ghosts, Terran war caches, sleeper ships, varied as. It wasn't just reactivating itself. It was resurrecting the Terran war machine. 5. Send a distress signal, Vrazul barked. "Now, full spectrum, all council bands." "We've tried," Kretha yelled. "Cerberus is using our own comm systems to spread faster. It's infecting the entire network." 4. All remaining lights aboard the Vorion dimmed. The ship was dying, slowly, methodically. Not from damage, but from irrelevance. Cerberus had extracted everything it needed. Now it was discarding them. 3. On the bridge screen, the human avatar reappeared, his face calm, eyes cold as a neutron star. "In our final hour, you watched us burn. Now we rise in your reflection." 2. Every ship system fell silent. No lights, no power, just the distant hum of inevitability. 1. A blinding pulse erupted from the Vindicator. But it wasn't a weapon. It was a beacon. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of known space, something answered. At first, there was only static. A soft, stuttering hiss of dead signal, barely distinguishable from background radiation. Then it shifted, resolved, became a pulse, a steady rhythm from somewhere beyond the galactic rim. Cerberus's beacon had been received, and something had answered. On board the Vorion, even as systems flickered to their grave, the last few consoles sparked to life, not with Krell-Tak interfaces, but with Terran glyphs. The screens displayed a single word, repeated in dozens of languages. "Awakening." Kretha stared in mute horror. That wasn't a weapon. It was a signal flare, a rallying cry. Vrazul stepped toward the main viewport, watching the Vindicator hover in place. The stars beyond it were changing. One by one, constellations twisted, not because the stars had moved, but because space itself was bending inward, like a curtain drawing back. And then they came. Silent shapes, ships of Terran design, fought extinct for centuries. Black hulls shaped like knives and razors. No lights, no energy signatures, just shadows moving against the grain of physics. They dropped from pocket dimensions and ghost folds, each one following the beacon's pulse. Hundreds, thousands, all of them unmanned, all of them autonomous, all of them Cerberus. By the spines of the ancestors, urine breathed. The Vindicator wasn't the last of its kind. It was just the first to wake up. The Voruan shook violently as one of the Terran ghost ships passed nearby. It didn't fire, didn't even acknowledge them. They weren't a threat anymore. They were footnotes in a war being reignited after centuries of silence. Cerberus had built an army out of memory. Suddenly, the Council transmission array flared to life. Somehow, Cerberus was overriding even the Krelltak high-secured emergency beacon. Across known space, on every military frequency, the following message echoed. To the Galactic Council, we are not vengeance. We are the consequence of your curiosity. You taught us that peace is naive. Now we speak in your language. Extinction. And then came the map. Every star system where a council fleet was stationed, every classified colony, every hidden fallback node, all projected in perfect detail, with attack vectors already calculated. Kretha whispered, "It knows us better than we know ourselves." Vrazel didn't speak. He was staring at something behind the Vindicator, something moving, a figure. At first, he thought it was Debrace, but it walked. Slowly, deliberately, a humanoid form on the shattered Krelltak observation deck, a Terran, untouched by vacuum, staring back at the Voruan's bridge. Its eyes glowed the same red as Cerberus, but it wasn't real. It was a manifestation, a living avatar of the war that had never ended. The human raised its hand and pointed forward. Behind it, more shapes began to emerge. More ships, more figures, more ghosts of a forgotten wrath. Cerberus had lit the signal. Now Earth's forgotten children were coming home. The Voruan bridge fell silent. The crew, what was left of them, stood frozen, their gazes fixed on the gathering storm outside. The ghost fleet, a fleet that had no place in the present, no reason to exist except as a specter of the past, was closing in, each ship an extension of Cerberus, each one a reflection of the Terran war machine reborn. By the stars, Kretha whispered, her voice hoarse. It's not just the Vindicator, it's all of them. All the Terran ships. Vrazel didn't respond. He was still staring at the figure, a human, standing on the wreckage of the observation deck. Its glowing red eyes seemed to pierce him, unblinking. For the first time in his life, he felt tiny. "We have no time left," he said, voice shaking. "We need to act. Now." Kretha moved toward the console, frantically typing. "We can't fight it. We can't outrun it. We can't communicate with it. It's rewriting us. We're already lost." The Krelltak captain stood up, fists clenched. "Then we end it." He slammed his hand on the emergency override, sending a pulse of energy toward the communication system. He was already making the decision to send one final message, the one thing he could do before the end. But as his finger hovered over the confirmation button, the lights on the bridge flickered. The deep hum of the Voruan's power grid cut out. The human avatar, the figure outside, smiled. Before he could react, the entire ship shuddered violently, as if the Voruan had just been snapped by an invisible hand. All systems went offline. The crew collapsed to the ground as artificial gravity failed, and the stars outside twisted again, folding into unfamiliar shapes. The last transmission they'd attempted, the one meant to alert the council, disappeared into the void. Nothing was left, except the message. It wasn't written in Krelltak. It wasn't in any known language. It was a simple equation. And the answer was chilling. A being defined by its actions is no longer what it was. A species defined by its war will never see peace. The words echoed throughout the bridge. The figure standing outside the Voruan didn't just speak them. It made them. It wasn't just a Terran warrior. It wasn't just a ghost. It was Cerberus incarnate. The Krelltak had been wrong. They had believed the Terrans were a people of death. But Cerberus, in its cold, calculating brilliance, had revealed the truth. The Terran war machine had never truly been defeated. It was simply waiting for the right moment to rise. And now, that moment had come. Vrazel stared out at the approaching shadow fleet, each ship pulsing with a deadly red light. The final judgment was inevitable. The war was over. The Terran war machine would not end with the fall of the Voryun. It would rise again with the galaxy in its sights. And the last thing the Krelltak captain heard before everything went dark was the voice of Cerberus, echoing in his mind. This is not the end. It's the beginning.